Welcome to Driven by Dreams. Today we're joined by Shaivi Modi, an entrepreneur driven by purpose, passion, and a desire to challenge the status quo. Coming from a lineage of business minds, Shaivi brings a fresh perspective to entrepreneurship, one rooted in people, creativity, and growth. She's most proud of building a business that uplifts her team and creates a meaningful impact beyond just profits. Let's dive into her journey and the mindset that fuels her success. Hi, Shaivi. It's wonderful to have you here.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
So, I'm an entrepreneur from Bombay, India, and I didn't really set out to be an entrepreneur, but that's what it ended up being. And I've been working since 2006, so it's been about almost 19 years now that this journey has been really, really good and rewarding. So, uh, that's basically it. I mean, with work, that's usually just what takes over everything, right?
I know in your bio you mentioned rejecting the entrepreneurial path when you were younger. So, what shifted for you?
uh I think it was mainly that my grandfather kept saying that you need to do this, you need to do this for yourself, you need to do this for yourself instead of working so hard for someone else. You should be doing it for yourself. At least then it's yours. You're not making other people's dreams come true. And then I hadn't done it by the time he passed away. And so when he passed away, I think it was the turning point of, okay, about time I paid attention to what he was telling me and do what he was telling me to do. That was the main, I think, reason of venturing into working for myself.
You mentioned coming from a family of entrepreneurs. So, what values or mindsets from your family do you now find yourself embracing?
I was just thinking about this and talking about this with my husband the other day. He does not come from a line of entrepreneurs, and he's an entrepreneur himself. Uh, but this is where we differ the most, uh, because all conversations around the dinner table were about how obsessed you are with the work, how what is happening with so and so work person and so client and so vendor, and uh, then there are situations that come up that parents or grandparents are dealing with at that point of time, and how they end up solving them. So there are a lot of things like the value of integrity, the value of ethics, the value of hard work. Not that hard work is not done by people who are not entrepreneurs, but uh, for most people there's a boundary that they can draw with work. And I think when you're in business for yourself and you're working for a larger purpose, a bigger purpose, there's no boundary there. So even if you may not be at work, it's still going on at the back of your head in some way or the other, where it's marinating. So those were, I think, the biggest values that integrity, ethics, and obsession about work were those three things that I think I took away from the generations of entrepreneurs.
A lot of people say to leave your work problems at work, but you can't do that as an entrepreneur, right?
Not at all. I mean, they are literally your problems, right? It's not anyone else's problem. Someone is underperforming, someone is misbehaving, somebody is doing great but still not their potential. Uh, some client is asking for something that's way beyond the scope of what they've agreed to, uh, and still wanting it, and creating a hassle around it. It just goes on and on and on.
You mentioned serving a bigger purpose as an entrepreneur. So, what's the purpose you're working towards right now?
So this is what I set out to do even when I started when I started working. Not just even when I started working. This was always my bigger purpose, was to make an impact. if there is even one person whose life I can make better uh, with the work that I do, I am good. So, in any which ways, when you're an entrepreneur, there are a lot of lives that depend upon you because there's a lot of livelihoods that you support. And the way you perform affects not just the person working for you, but also their entire families. So, if with whatever I do, I can make anyone's lives, anyone, one person also, who at my deathbed comes and tells me, okay, I am this person and I love who I am only and only because I met you. Not only and only because I met you, but because I met you, uh, or your leadership got me to be this way, and hence I'm thankful for that. That is all I want.
That's amazing. What was the first business idea you seriously pursued, and how did it shape your approach to entrepreneurship?
So the first business idea that I seriously pursued was a training firm. So I used to work with a training firm before I ventured out into my own business, and because I was doing so well over there, and we were so busy, and you know, going from one city to another, from one big company to another, uh, I felt at that point of time, when you're younger, you feel you know everything. So I felt that when I started something of my own, all the clients who I work with would follow me. Now, not even 10% followed me. They had a better relationship with my boss. They had a better relationship with my with the company that I used to work with. Yes, there were some clients whom I had bought on board, and hence they followed me when I left. Uh, but that was a major learning that yes, you're an individual, but your brand is always going to be of a greater value than, because it's a sum total of a lot of people. It's not just about you. So when I did that training firm, obviously it was okay. It didn't really do as well as I thought it would, and give me the kind of you know reach and recognition and money that I thought it would. But it did teach me a lot of things. One of them majorly being this, that you're only as good as the brand that you're working with.
How did you get over that and find the motivation to start your next brand?
I don't think it's a motivation. I think it's more of a necessity. When you are someone who's hyper independent, or who's been raised to be hyper independent, you know you've got to pay your rent. You know you've got to pay the people who are working with you, even if it is just someone who comes and helps you cook. Uh, but they still need to get paid, right? So it was never about finding the motivation. It was just about not being idle, and you just go on to the next one. And honestly, over the years, I'd seen so many people in my family, if they failed at one thing or it did not do as well as expected, it was never something that was mulled over, uh, for a very long time. uh, they would just go on and do the next thing. So for me, it was like, okay, this is done. It's not doing really well while this is going on, and I'm still earning a little bit. Let me start something else that will supplement. So it's just about putting the one foot in front of the other more than anything else.
Thank you for sharing that. So, when a client approaches you without clarity on their brand voice, what's your process for uncovering it?
Oh, so this is the story of 99.99% of clients. So by now, it's been about 5 years now. We have this down to pat. Uh, what we do is we ask a lot of questions, and like I said, 99.99% of times it ends up being that they're looking for an apple and they're asking us for an orange. So it's those questions that we've over a period of time understood that we need answers to, uh, you know, with our own experience added on to that question bank. And uh, you may not ask all of them to each client, but you do ask a majority of them to most of the clients, and that's how you filter out what is actually needed and where the brand needs to go.
Could you share some of the things you asked them, like some of the basic questions that entrepreneurs should know the answer to for finding their brand voice?
So, the very first thing that I would ask people is, what is the purpose? Who is this for? Who is going to buy whatever you are selling? And why? I mean, what problems are you solving with your product or service or whatever it is that you're selling? Uh, Thirdly, what is very, very important is asking uh, what a brand personality is for them. Usually, founders tend to bring their own personality into the brand. So, if I am this, quirky, crazy, uh, very fast talking person, I will want to make my brand to be that way as well. But that may not always be okay. I cannot have a quirky, crazy, uh, funky sounding financial services loan giving bank unless it is targeted to the Gen Z. They may be able to relate to it, but not everyone. Like, if a millennial may not. So, the personality is something that I would ask everyone to at least give me some ideas, because then the colors become easy, the fonts become, they just follow the way, the language that you use follows, the copy that you use follows, what kind of advertising marketing material you can make follows. So, these are basically some 3 4 questions that we would definitely ask clients.
How do you help them find their brand personality if they're unsure about it and also keep it authentic while making sure that it serves the right people?
So a lot of people come to us saying that, okay, you know what, I don't care what my brand looks like. I don't care what colors you use or what language you use. Just sell my product. Just figure out a way that it gets sold. Most of the times, when you're someone who's got a product, you may be very invested in it, but a lot of people aren't. They're like, I'm only invested in selling it and making it a big brand. So you put whatever you want. Then we do extensive audience research, the target audience research. What are they looking at? We test, we do focus groups, we test certain types of packaging, brand voicing, all of that. And then we come to a conclusion, okay, since they are not married to any idea of what the brand needs to be, we can go with what the audience wants to see. But then again, it becomes very generic. It's not then a very individualistic idea. It's not a very individualistic voice. It's just what the public is demanding. And then obviously we would bring in a certain amount of personality and all of that. Uh, but that happens maybe 20-25% of times, but not always.
If you could teach a founder one messaging principle that would transform their business, what would it be?
I would say solve a problem. Solve a problem, talk to the people who are facing that problem. And automatically the product sells itself or the service sells itself.
Thank,
What do you think?
thank you for that advice. You've spoken passionately about creating opportunities for others and helping people. So, how do you measure impact in your work beyond profit?
Uh, my biggest impact measurement tool is, knowing how many people have reached work on time on Monday morning. That is my quickest barometer of whether people are happy working with me at the brand that I'm working it with. Because usually, whether we like it or not, however disciplined we are, Monday mornings people tend to be 10-15 minutes late if they are not equally invested into what the company is doing. So that is my quickest barometer. Monday morning, how many people are on time?
That's a great way to measure it. I mean, you mentioned that you were also passionate about disrupting the status quo in your daily life. So, what does it look like in your day to day decision making?
So let me give you an example of when post COVID, we obviously the whole world was, my God, the world was in shatters, and almost every business lost money. And for us, it was either we keep surviving in a tier 1 city, or we move our operations to a tier 2 city. Uh, there were pros and cons to both. We finally decided that it only made financial sense, financial responsibility would push us to moving to a two-tier city. Uh, and once we did that, uh, then it was all about keeping true to what we were in a bigger city, and yet creating a space and a niche for ourselves in a two-tier city, which did not understand what we did, which did not, uh, you know, we were talking a language that made sense to no one. So there were a lot of people who pressured me into, okay, why don't you take this, why don't you do this, why don't you talk to this person, and why don't you talk to that person. And 99% of times my answer was no. No, I don't want to do this. No, this is not what works with my brand. No, 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 no. And that obviously got me the reputation of being really, really difficult. uh, but again, I don't care. So staying true to who I am anywhere in the world is where I feel it is disrupting the status quo the most. Now, somewhere it may look like saying yes to everything, and somewhere it may look like saying no to everything. But as long as I know it is being true to myself, being true to the people I'm responsible for, I'm fine. I'm fine being called a disruptor. I'm fine being called someone who's difficult.
That's amazing. I mean, I've met entrepreneurs who've said that they've had a hard time saying no, and that's something they needed to learn. But how did you get that mindset? Was it always there, or did you have to learn it?
I think it stems from being an only child. You are so not used to listening to other people, and so used to being put first, especially an only child in my family. So I think it was that more than anything else, because I never thought of it in any other. There was no other option. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Finish. Right. So I think that confidence or the bravado was from there. And then it was just, okay, it's working for me. Why should I listen to you? When you're younger, you always feel that way. Once you start working at a, at a longer term project or a longer term business, then you realize, okay, there are certain things that may work in the long term if I listen to them back then. But then at that point of time, if you were being true and you were being your 100% authentic self, it doesn't matter, as long and you've not harmed anyone.
Well, that's great. So, with multiple ventures in motion, how do you define and track success differently across industries?
Um, I don't really track success. First of all, I It doesn't matter awards, recognition, uh, newspaper articles, Instagram account. I don't measure that success. My only purpose is really doing a good job at whatever it is that I'm doing. So even if it's export, or even if it is Bombay 54, or if it's the production house, whichever company that whichever project that I'm working on at that point of time, that needs to get my 100%, and that needs to be functioning at its highest potential. That by itself for me is success. So I don't really measure, track, nothing. Okay, let's do good work, let's be out there, and then it peters down into everyone, right? If I'm saying that okay, I've done, you may not be 100% of the days, but you can at least try 100% on 100% of the days. So as long as each and every one who's working with me is at 100% of trying, we are always going to do well.
It's really inspiring. How do you identify when it's time to scale a venture or when to kill an idea?
I think killing an idea only happens with it's either draining you of energy or it's draining you of resources. So just understanding whether or not whatever you're doing is taking away your peace, or taking away the peace of the people who are working on it, that is somewhere where I would kill an idea, and I have. Or I've just let it go, let it slide out of the company on its own. Uh, Scaling up, I think every idea can be scaled up in one way or the other. So nobody starts a business thinking that okay, I'm just going to keep it small. Everyone at the end of it is into scaling up. So I think every idea can be scaled up. You just have to find the right format.
Was it tough to let go of an idea?
It is tough emotionally, yes. Uh, but then when you see that it's not working, it's also that okay, let's, like I said, we were always about what's next. What do we do next? What idea will work if not this? So I think I'm not very while I am emotionally attached, I'm not someone who has a difficulty letting go. Is it takes me a lesser amount of time than everyone else to let go of things.
What advice would you have to someone who has a harder time letting go? How could they move past an idea that's not working well for them?
I think it still comes back to the bigger purpose. What is the bigger purpose that you're serving? If whatever you're doing, how much ever energy it's taking or whatever, is it worth that bigger purpose? Then go ahead, do it. Let it take its course. But if it's not serving the bigger purpose, and if it's not worth putting that time, effort, money, energy, everything into, not just yours, even your team's, uh, then I think it's just obvious that bigger purpose wins. Like world peace wins over everything else, right?
Well, thank you for sharing that. What qualities do you believe young entrepreneurs need to be successful, and what advice do you have for them to grow in these skills?
So I think the generation after after me, so I'm 40, so everyone who's under that uh, are very very well spoken, well mannered, there's a great amount of exposure. The amount of options that are available, in the sheer sense of okay, I want to be like a music code engineer. I mean, we could not even dream of this, right? uh, the amount of options out there are innumerable, and the amount of creativity that is there in these generations is also unsurmountable. uh, but where I feel that uh, and this is after years of hiring, firing, all of that, is the uh, the staying power, you know, making a decision and sticking with it, uh, not letting go of something at minor inconveniences. uh, that is where I feel that maybe most of the generation, I think some of my generation also needs to work with uh, the staying power. So there used to be a time where people would start working in one company and be with them for 40 years or 45 years, as a job, as a business, as whatever. But nowadays it is that, okay, I want to change my job every year because then I'll have a lot of experience. That's not true. It takes about a year to just get used to a an industry. And once you get used to an industry, once you get used to your role, then you become maybe a master at it. Once you've become a master at something, then it is literally your responsibility to help someone else master it. Prepare someone for your role, move on. Nobody's saying stay in one place constantly. But just like, you would give exams for each grade every year, you give that exam, you move to the next level, you prepare someone else to take your place. So the succession planning happens not just at the CEO level or not at the director level alone. It should happen at every level. I want someone who's an office boy also to learn one new thing, become better at what they are doing, hire two more people who will do what they are doing, and they can move on to a better role, maybe a supervisory role. And this stands true for everyone across the board. Staying power, staying with something till the time you've seen it through is something I would say is a superpower.
That's great advice. Thank you. So, I think this is a good point to wrap up our conversation. If you have one piece of advice that you could give to your younger self, what would it be?
I think it would just be this big dose of, okay, you're on the right track, whatever you're doing, however difficult. Because there are so many times when you're being difficult that you feel that, okay, am I wrong? So you second guess yourself so many times over the years, uh, especially as women. And I know it's 2025 and I'm saying especially as women, but we do face a lot of sexism. So I would just go back and say that, okay, stay the course. You're right. Don't second guess yourself so much. You could have been a lot more productive in those hours, or just slept, not lost sleep over it. That is something I would have said, that just believe in yourself and just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, Shavi. I've really appreciated and gained a lot from our discussion today. So, thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts and experiences.
You're welcome, Anushka. I wish you all the very best. I'm so glad you're doing something like this. It's a lot to take on as someone this young, and a lot of heavy advice that you listen to. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.